Hey guys, good afternoon. I wanted to talk about one of the most overrated thing in startup investing. I would actually argue it is the most overrated thing, which is market cycles and timing markets. So I wanted to educate myself a little bit before going on and discussing this. I wanted to share something with you guys. Take a look at this. This is the largest drawdowns since 2008 in the public markets. So we see, of course, the Great Recession, which is a black swan event, 43% drawdown. We see COVID, which was a 34% drawdown. Both of those are considered black swan events. Now, there's an interesting theory to ask why have there been two black swan events in a decade? I have an opinion on that, but I'll leave that for another video. In terms of market cycles, here's why this is the most absurd question, most overrated question. First of all, let's start with if VCs knew. Let's start with that premise. If I was able to predict with granularity, even on a monthly basis, the macro hedge funds, I would be, essentially the world's first trillionaire because you would put in leveraged bets on it. That's why people like George Soros or Drunken Miller only have tens of billions of dollars because they can't even predict it. So the idea that anyone, especially a private investors, could predict public markets is one of the most absurd view. The other aspect, the more practical aspect, is two things. One is duration. When I invest today in a startup, I'm investing for the public markets in 5 years. Nobody could predict that. Nobody even could really, in many ways, directionally predict that in the cycles. The latest cycle was, there was a rotation from growth stocks into value stocks. And there was a little blip and rotation back into growth stocks. All these things kind of happen. Nobody expects this. It's tied to interest rates and other kind of factors. So again, nobody could really predict this. The people that could predict it, even with 60% certainty, are decabillionaires. So that's the context of that. The other more practical aspect, so even trying to have an opinion itself is absurd and highly not recommended. It only blurs your thinking. That being said, the other aspect is a much more practical aspect. In venture capital, I've talked about this. We are trying to find the next, 100x return. I don't use the word 10,000 or 1,000x return because it's absurd. And even in cases like Google and Facebook, you essentially only the very original investors that got that kind of return. So you could have invested in Facebook in the private markets and still not achieve that return. So in order to get 100x return, there's only one way to do that. One is a little luck, because 100x is very difficult. But two is you have to invest early and you have to invest pre-consensus, or get into a very small, highly vetted round. In other words, what matters much more than timing the public markets is getting into the right asset. Intuitively, it makes sense. If we look at 30% as the biggest drawdown since 2008, let's assume that the biggest drawdown that you're looking at is about 20% in a typical market, which is a huge amount. Typically, it's 10 to 20%. But let's say 20%. If you invest at a $50 million valuation, the company goes public at $10 billion valuation. Do you really care if it's 8 billion or 10 billion? The answer is no, you do not care. What matters is that you invest at the $50 million valuation versus the next round, which is a $700 million valuation. That's all that matters. Even if more mattered, that's all you can predict. The only way that I look at market cycles is that they're opportunities. I invested in RobinHood with Sequoia in the thick of COVID because everybody was running for the exits, and I dove in because I understood the asset, I understood the team, and this was my opportunity to get in. I invested in a company that's still stealth with Paula Graham and Jessica Livingston themselves, the founder of Y Combinator, in the height of COVID. It's a deal I probably won't be able to access again. I don't even know Paula Graham, but everybody again jumped towards the exit. So the only way to really time market cycles is by understanding that systematically people will run for the exits and there will be opportunities. Everything else is just noise, and I would not recommend that. With that, hopefully that was helpful. Thank you.